Hey guys, how's it going? It's your guy Tyler here. We are one day away from the start of the NFL regular season, which kicks off tomorrow night. Packers versus Bears to open up the season. It's going to be a very interesting matchup. And so here in my hand is the 2018 Chiefs schedule. Now, this one includes the preseason, but the preseason is coming on. It is over. It is time to focus on the regular season. So here today in this video, we'll briefly revisit last season and how it ended up, and then I'm going to preview the 2019 season for the Chiefs with my personal predictions. These are predictions that have taken different things into account, whether it be the strength of the schedule, each opponent on the schedule, and all sorts of other factors. So anyway, let's get into revisiting briefly last season. The Chiefs won the division and came a Dee Ford offside penalty away from reaching the Super Bowl, losing in overtime to the New England Patriots. Dominated the regular season, at least by most standards, in reaching the playoffs with the number one overall seed by the skin of our teeth. I'll admit that much. But got the number one seed and almost utilized that home field advantage in the AFC Championship game to beat the Patriots. So now let's go into what's happened since then. Bob Sutton, last year's defensive coordinator for the Chiefs, was relieved of his duties. We hired Steve Spagnuolo, who has experience with Coach Andy Reid from previous experience together on the coaching staff. And he shifted our defense from a base 3-4 to a base 4-3 defense, which I've personally always been a fan of the 4-3 defense because I feel like it's just the most simple way to line things up on the football field. And now, whether you have a 3-4 or 4-3, you still got to have a good front seven to win not only football games, but to win championships as well. So speaking of, we traded away Dee Ford in the offseason to the 49ers. We let Justin Houston go. We let Eric Berry go. But we have brought in some new guys, including Tyrann Mathieu, safety who is formerly of the Arizona Cardinals and the Houston Texans. And I've seen him play this preseason, and I've seen him in a practice session up at Chiefs camp. This guy's going to be really good. I think he's really going to be a big impact for us on the defensive side of the ball. We brought in Frank Clark from the Seattle Seahawks, sending away our first-round pick this year to get Frank Clark, and then we signed him to a long-term deal. So from what I've heard from everyone around the league is that overall Frank Clark is a better pass rusher than Dee Ford. And so hopefully that'll translate to more sacks, which leads to less points being scored against us, and by that token, winning the Super Bowl. So, and then we, the day that the rosters had to be trimmed down to 53 players, we signed LaShawn McCoy, who had just been released by the Buffalo Bills earlier in the day. Trade away Carlos Hyde to pick up an offensive tackle from the Texans. So a couple of needs being met there, with Houston recently losing Lamar Miller to a torn ACL in their preseason finale, actually. So now let's go through this schedule, and I'll give you a week-by-week kind of a short breakdown and then an overall box score, basically. So week 1, we are at Jacksonville. I'm not going to waste a lot of people's time. Now, obviously, with this being the first regular season game, all the starters are going to play all 4 quarters for the first time this season. So there's going to be probably a little bit of field rust out there. Probably going to take a minute to get up and going. But I think in the second half, we're really going to pull away from the Jacksonville Jaguars, who I still think they'll have a pretty solid defense. And they still got guys like Jalen Ramsey on the outside. So now I'll be interested to see kind of how the offense shakes out. Especially with the addition of Mecole Hardman in the second round of the draft and Darwin Thompson in the 6th round of the draft. So It'll be interesting to see how those guys rotate in, and even LaShawn McCoy, how he'll rotate in. So overall, I think it's going to be a good game. I think the final score is going to be 31-10. Because I think Nick Foles will throw a touchdown pass in that game, and there will be one other drive where the defense bends but doesn't break. Like, we'll give up a field goal. So I think it's going to be 31-10 final score for Week 1. Week 2, we go to Oakland. This will be our last regular season game against the Raiders in Oakland, because they'll move to Vegas before next season starts. And let's just say we'll give them a nice parting gift. I think with just how much of a disaster at least Antonio Brown has been with all the different stuff going on, it seems like he spent more of the offseason filing grievances against the NFL instead of being on the field and practicing and getting reps and getting ready for the regular season. I know that it's been kind of blown up, but either way, I don't think Antonio Brown is going to be quite at 100% even yet through probably the first 3 or 4 games of the regular season. But I do think Derek Carr will throw a touchdown pass as well. And Josh Jacobs, their running back, is going to be solid. I don't think he'll get in the end zone, but he'll have a solid performance. Probably 70, 80 rushing yards against that Chiefs defense. I actually think this one is going to be a game where we don't give up a field goal, actually. I think it's going to be probably 28-7 is going to be the final score Week 2 against the Raiders. Like I said, give them a nice parting gift before they go to Vegas. Week 3 is our home opener against the Baltimore Ravens. And I was there the last time we played the Ravens last season when Pat Mahomes had that no-look pass. And then the huge miraculous play on 4th and 9 late in the game that went for almost 50 yards to Tyreek Hill, which helped us prevail in the end. I do think things are going to be slightly different because I think we'll have more preparation done for Lamar Jackson this time. And they're trying to get him to throw the ball a little bit more, which, I mean, as an NFL quarterback these days, you don't want to be taking 20 hits a game between dropping back in the pocket and facing a pass rush, and also, in addition to that, carrying the ball. So I personally think it's going to be a very, very tough matchup. So in the end, I think we'll get the win, but it's not going to be by a wide margin. I think probably 24-14 final score in that game. So I think it's still going to take some time for the Chiefs defense to kind of build that cohesion and chemistry, but I think they'll start rolling right about the end of the quarter mark of the season. Then the next week we go to Detroit to play the Lions. I'm not expecting too much out of the Lions. I don't think they're going to roll over per se, and just lie down for the Chiefs. But now I do think we're kind of metaphorically going to smash them in the mouth. And I think this is where you'll really see the offense really start to put up points, especially since we'll be getting a rhythm and we'll kind of establish what the offense is going to look like in those first 2 or 3 games of the year. And I think this will be our first 40-point game of the year. Final score probably 41-3. It's gonna be a blowout. So I guess nothing further more to say on that one. Week 5 we play the Indianapolis Colts. If you had asked me a month ago what I thought about facing the Colts, I thought it was going to be a tough game, and that was going to be the closest to us suffering a defeat in the first 5 weeks because they still had Andrew Luck back then, even just a month ago. Things have changed now. Jacoby Brissett is going to be the starting quarterback for the Colts. So with that being said, I think it's going to be another offensive rampage by a lot of people's standards. Um, I think it's gonna be 37-3. Actually, no, 37-10. I think it's gonna be 37-10. It's gonna be tough to score touchdowns. I think early in the game, because that Indianapolis defense is pretty solid. But yeah, they still have like guys like T.Y. Hilton and Eric Ebron on offense. So I think they'll do all right, but not a ton of scoring on that end. So I think it's gonna be another win for the Chiefs. We start off 5-0. Then the very next week, that's gonna be a tough matchup. Even though we're at home, we're hosting the Houston Texans. They still have guys like Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins on offense, and those two can make a lot of music together on the football field. So, man, this is tough. At least predicting a final score. I think this is going to be probably a low-scoring game by both teams. I think in the end it's going to be 20-17 in favor of the Chiefs, because I do think that home field advantage is really going to play out for us in the end. It's going to be tough through the first 3.5 quarters, but then late in the fourth quarter, that's where the Chiefs will, I think, take the final advantage. So then we go to Denver that following Thursday, literally 5 days after that game. I don't think we'll lay an egg per se, but definitely compared to what the offense can do, it's going to be kind of low scoring, considering we'll be playing a second game in 5 days. I think this one's going to be 23-0. I think we'll get the shutout over the Broncos in Mile High. Then that next game that we play is at home against Green Bay on Sunday Night Football. I hate to say this. I think this is where we'll suffer our first loss this year, even with it being at home. Because Aaron Rodgers is still one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Their defense is usually always pretty solid. Very rarely do they have a bad defense by any sort of standard or metric or anything like that. I do think it's going to be close, though. I think the Packers are going to escape Arrowhead with a win by 3 points. Probably 34-31 is going to be the final score in that game. But I think it's going to be very fun to watch. I think it's going to be kind of similar to the game against the Rams last year. Just not as much scoring, but it's going to be very exciting to watch all the way through the fourth quarter. Then that very next week, we face the Minnesota Vikings, also at home. We're going to have a bad taste in our mouth from what I think will be our first loss of the year. And it's going to kind of kick everybody's butts on defense, get them back into playing with a tenacity and with a viciousness almost. So I think we'll get the win over the Vikings. They're going to put up a good amount of points. I think they'll put up about 24, 27 points at most. But then there's one problem. The Chiefs, I think, are going to put up another 40-point performance. Probably another 41-point game. So 41-24 is going to be my final score prediction for that one. I mean, our offense is almost like an ultimate team on Madden. It's just ridiculously good. So then that next week, we travel to Nashville to play the Titans. I'm going to keep this short and sweet. Chiefs win big. I think it's another shutout. 48-0 is what I'm predicting the final score to be for that one. And then that next week on Monday Night Football, we play the Chargers in Mexico City. I think that's going to be another tough game for the Chiefs, another very close game all the way through the fourth quarter. And I think the Chargers are going to win 31-21. But it's going to be a close game. It's going to be good to watch, right up until the end for Chiefs Kingdom. So I think that'll be our second loss of the year. Then we have the bye week. And then, fittingly enough, we play Oakland here at Arrowhead after the bye week. I think it's going to be another big win. Not as big of a blowout as I predicted in other games so far. I'm going to say 34-10. Or no, 34-17. So I think the Oakland offense is going to be a little bit more in rhythm with Derek Carr, Antonio Brown, and Josh Jacobs and others on that offensive side of the ball. But the Raiders have had a tough time winning at Arrowhead in the past decade at least. So until they bring what I feel like is a better challenge to Arrowhead, I'm going to pick the Chiefs to win every time over the Raiders. Then that very next week on Sunday night, or not Sunday Night Football, that next week we play the Patriots in Foxborough for what seems like the 10th year in a row, which is stupid if you ask me, but that's for another day. I do think this is where Tom Brady is going to get the better of Pat Mahomes on this one. 34-24 final score in favor of the Patriots, so that'll be our third loss of the season, I think. Then our rebound game is at home against Denver. I think it's going to be another big win. 34-14 final score on that one. Then we go to Chicago in Week 16 to play the Bears on Sunday Night Football. I think this is going to be probably the lowest scoring and closest game at the same time that the Chiefs will play. I think it's going to be 20-17 final score on that one as well. I predicted that for another game. But late in the season, it's going to be really, really cold in Chicago, or cold throughout most of the country. So it's going to be low scoring. Defense is going to be big. So it'll be a close win, but I think we'll get the win in Chicago. Then the regular season finale is against the Chargers here at Arrowhead. I think we'll definitely even the series with the Chargers in that one and get the win 34-27 to close out what I feel is a very successful regular season, finishing 13-3, winning the division, and being the number 1 overall seed in the AFC. Because I think somehow, someway, the Patriots are going to finish 12-4 and be the 2nd overall seed once again. And I'm hoping they don't finish 13-3 because then they'd have the tiebreaker over us. So they'd be the number 1 overall seed. We have to go to Foxborough again in the AFC Championship game if the Patriots make it that far. So I know the Chiefs know how important it is to have the AFC Championship game be at Arrowhead. So I think they're going to do it again and just put their foot on the gas pedal all the way through the season and finish 13-3. Then from there, I don't necessarily have a prediction of who we're going to face in the divisional round, after we get our bye week in the wild card round. I think whoever it is coming to Arrowhead, they're going to suffer defeat. So that would put the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. I feel like it's going to be against the Patriots again, but this time. So Tom Brady had the better of us this past January at Arrowhead, and he'll get the better of us in the regular season, I think. But then I think Pat Mahomes, should they face off against each other in the AFC Championship game again, I think he's going to take the torch from Tom Brady and lead us to victory over the Patriots in the AFC Championship game, send us to the Super Bowl, where I do have a prediction on a matchup there as well. I think we're going to be facing the Saints in the Super Bowl this year. And I think in spite of having to face Drew Brees, Alvin Kamara, and Michael Thomas, I think in the end the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl by defeating the Saints 34-24. And I think we're going to have a Super Bowl parade next year. And there's going to be probably school closings like there were for the World Series parade for the Royals a few years ago. And you know me. If there's a Super Bowl parade, I'm definitely going to try and go. And another prediction I have is when the Chiefs win the Super Bowl. So there were 800,000 people downtown when the Royals had their World Series parade. I think there's going to be at least 2 million people from the Kansas City metro area downtown for a Super Bowl parade. Because I feel like this town has always loved the Chiefs more than the Royals, I think. And it's because the Chiefs have had more consistent success since they've been in Kansas City than the Royals have. And people just, I think for the most part, there was a lot of people that jumped on the Royals bandwagon in 2014 when we made it to the World Series. And then by the end of the 2016 season, a lot of those bandwagon fans hopped off. Which, I mean, it is what it is, but as far as I'm concerned, they're still not true Royals fans if they hopped on the bandwagon that year. Or for that short run that we had. But I think there's a lot of true, loyal, diehard Chiefs fans in Kansas City, in the area. So yeah, I think there's going to be a lot more people for a Chiefs Super Bowl parade than there were for the World Series parade. So there you have it, folks. There's my preview for the Kansas City Chiefs in 2019. I think we're going to win the trophy and get a second Super Bowl victory in franchise history. So until next time, thank you as always for watching. Have a great day, everybody. God bless, and go Chiefs.